Good evening. We will be conducting tonight's meeting in person in the council chambers and in a virtual setting using Zoom to allow staff and public to social distance. Members of the public may view and listen to the meeting tonight on Wave Channel 18 and online through the city's YouTube channel. If you would like to participate in live public comment via the Zoom platform, please refer to the agenda for instructions. Pastor Chris Young from Summit Church will be giving the invocation this evening, and the mayor will begin the meeting immediately after the invocation. We will get started here shortly.
Yeah, so just for the record, in case you weren't told, Gwen is going to be working remotely because she's handling IT, so she won't be here with us in person. She'll be remote. Gwen, we're having a hard time hearing you inside chambers, so if there's any way you and Jennifer can figure out.
Sure.
Jennifer's not here. So that's right. That's why Gwen's where she is. If there's a way you can figure that out, that would be helpful.
Okay. Thank you, Christine. Are you able to hear me better now?
A little bit, but not a lot.
Okay. Let me get right on top of the microphone. So good evening. We will be conducting tonight's meeting in person in the council chambers and in a virtual setting using Zoom to allow staff and public to social distance. Members of the public may view and listen to the meeting tonight on Wave Channel 18 and online through the city's YouTube channel. If you would like to participate in live public comment via the Zoom platform, please refer to the agenda for instructions. Pastor Chris Young from Summit Church will be giving the invocation, and the mayor will begin the meeting immediately after.
God bless you guys. Good evening. I want to first say just thank you for continuing to invite pastors like myself in to participate in this process, and want to say something I've learned as a leader over the last 2 years is there are no enviable positions of leadership or law enforcement. Difficult times and difficult jobs, and leadership has never been more important. So appreciate your continued commitment and appreciate our community. Several years ago, we equipped all of the schools in Western Placer Unified School District with security devices that sadly had to be used recently. And in that, we realized that 2 of our schools, the most new additions to our school district, Scott Lehman Elementary and 12 Bridges High School, are not yet equipped. And so we're going to be leading an effort to equip those schools as well from Summit Church, and invite anybody who might be a business owner. We had several businesses call us and ask us if they could participate and donate to that. And we're going to begin that effort again because we want all of our schools to be as safe as possible. So thank you for your leadership, and again, inviting me to be a part of this and our other pastors as well. God, we come to you with humility because in moments like this and in seasons like this, we discover that there is so little that we're actually controlling. So many of the things we value and so many of the things that we do in our daily lives can be upturned and overturned so quickly. And it makes us believe that the thing that we once thought we controlled, we don't control. But for the remaining things that our hands do touch and that they do influence and that our voices speak into, I pray for this, for wisdom over every one of these leaders, for humility and compassion as they make the kind of decisions to steward our resources and to make the kind of decisive and pivotal choices to influence the future of our community. And they do that in sometimes environments that don't foster goodwill and don't allow for civil moments to happen. I pray this, that they would continue to lead with integrity and with steadiness of hand and skillfulness of hand, so that we as a community can benefit from their wisdom and their decisiveness. I pray for every law enforcement officer in this room and those that aren't represented in this room who are out on patrol, that you would add an extra hedge of protection and safety over them, over their families, over their finances, pardon me, over each one of their moments so that they can continue to guard this community with diligence. And we pray for all the things that come out of this meeting to be ones that move us in the right direction and towards the future that leads us to our highest and best. And we pray this in your wisdom and in your name. Amen.
Thank you so much, Pastor Young. Really appreciate it. Appreciate your time being here. All right, it is 6:04. Call the meeting to order. Can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, Mayor. Councilmember Joyner?
Here, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Councilmember Carlskin?
Here.
Councilmember Lauritsen? Councilmember Silhai?
Here.
And Mayor Andriotta?
Here. Thank you for that. All right, report from closed session, item number 3.
Thank you, Mayor Andriotta. Yes, we did meet in closed session to discuss potential litigation, and staff was given direction, but there is no reportable action.
All right, thank you. And item number 4 is a pledge of allegiance. I don't think we assigned anybody yet, so I think, if unless I'm wrong, I'm gonna lead, so stand with us, please. Salute pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, item number 5, agenda modifications. Do we have any agenda modifications this evening from council members? No? Okay, thank you. All right, item number 6, presentations. And I have to say, I'm very, very honored to do this. Let me start here. I'm going to stand up over here, and maybe Ms. Mollenkoff can help me with the, yeah, thank you. So we have said many times since the incidents that occurred while we were recognizing all of you, how proud we are as a council, as a city, of the work that you have done, the work that you do every day, how these events were handled swiftly and judiciously and kept everybody safe. And so before I actually read what we have here, personally, I just want to say thank you. We could not be prouder. We could not be more grateful to have you protecting our city, and nobody does it better than Lincoln PD. So thank you. In recognition for your service during the 12 Bridges High School threats incident on December 8th, 2021, your dedication, determination, and professionalism exemplified the spirit of law enforcement and service to the Lincoln community is now being presented to Detective J.P. Shaw. So come forward when we call your name. You can applaud. Yeah, you can applaud. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you. Congratulations. Stay up here. Detective Cody Sober. Congratulations. Thank you very much. And School Resource Officer Daniel Searle. Thank you so much. All right, you guys just hang up here. In recognition for your service during the Lincoln High School firearm threat incident on December 9th, 2021, your dedication, determination, and professionalism exemplify the spirit of law enforcement and service to the Lincoln community is now being presented to Lieutenant Keith Johnson. Sergeant Matt Williamson. Corporal Brett Schneider. Officer Annette Ellis. Officer John Schmidt. Officer Taylor Brown. School Resource Officer Wes Collins. Yeah, stay here. We're going to take a picture at the end. School Resource Officer Laura Savage. Man, I love her handshake. Dispatch Supervisor Stacy Williamson. Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Dispatcher Danielle Sims. Administrative Analyst Renee Maldonado. And Sergeant Jeff Moore. All right. I'm going to request that the council come take a picture with all the officers, and maybe we can get someone to do that so we can all take a picture. Can we all fit?
For a little widespread.
We're gonna have to squeeze in kind of this way.
You want you guys sit and they all walk behind you?
Oh, let's do that. Let's do that. Council, we'll sit and you guys walk behind us. Perfect. Will you take the picture? Oh, Mark's got it. Okay. All right. We're council's gonna sit and you guys can come behind. And that way we can all get. Wait, we're gonna sit and they're gonna walk behind us. Just put your.
All right, so what are we doing? We're gonna squeeze it. We can see.
Council has the easy job.
Yeah. Family, you are welcome to get up and take pictures as well.
Come on.
All right, you guys squeeze in the back here. Come around. Yeah, come on. Just get closer. We all got a mask on. Get in here.
Take our mask off. Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
40 years as a city manager, no one's ever trusted me to take pictures.
This does not bode well.
We'll find out if you should ever be trusted again.
Should the city attorney jump in?
There you go, just in
Yes,
case.
yes.
Good.
Get in here.
Somebody can do a pano.
By the way, I'm smiling.
If we're all smiling under the
Yeah.
masks, right?
I know. Can we? I wish we could take them off.
Smiling under their mask.
Look at the balloon she's got on that phone.
Can we take them off for a second? Does anybody object to taking them off for a second?
That's
Hey, okay, hold on. We're
on,
gonna take our
Christine.
masks off.
Does anyone have an objection for
Any have an
one
objection for
2-second
10
picture with no
seconds? Okay,
mask?
take your masks off. Let's take a picture.
2-second inhale.
Don't breathe.
Exhale. Perfect.
All right. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Really proud of
Really,
you.
thank you so much. It's my favorite council meeting I've ever had.
I know. And I was like,
I
I'm
can
so
get
glad
in
that
and
I get
edit.
to do that.
I'm so jealous you got to do it.
I know. I knew you would be.
It was my crisis.
That's a good one.
Yeah, it's good.
I take a
did
much
such a
better
good- they
picture
did
with
such
my
a good
mask
job.
on.
No, you don't.
So
Yes, I
thankful.
do. Can't tell whether I'm smiling or not.
Oh, you got those eyes smiling over the
All
mask.
right, and everyone else that's left in the room, we appreciate your patience through all of that.
Leave now.
Yeah, yeah.
We got a lot of interesting stuff coming up.
All right. All right, item number 7, public comment. I'm looking in the room, and if anybody has a public comment, we'll take your first, and then Gwen, you can tell us if there's
Albert.
anybody online. So, Mr. Schreiber, go ahead.
Good evening. Albert Shiver, Moore Road. First, I'd like to congratulate Miss Andriotta for her new position.
Albert, it's hard to hear you. Can you?
How about now?
It's
Better.
better.
Can you hear me
Thank
now?
you.
Anyway, I'd like to congratulate Miss Andriotta for her new position as mayor and wish her good luck. I'd also like to congratulate the police department for the job well done. Just amazes me what they can do with being so shorthanded. So later on in the agenda, item 9 is a public hearing, and public hearings are supposed to be publicly noticed. So brought to my attention that item 9 was noticed in the Lincoln News Messenger, and Ms. Scanlon was the one that signed it, basically. After I was made aware of this, I started looking around, and I couldn't find it anywhere else publicly noticed. I'm not sure if this was a mistake or what. I get the e-bulletin from the city 2 or 3 times a week. I look there was nothing under the section that says public notices. So, I realize everybody makes mistakes, and I don't know if it was oversight on Ms. Scanlon's part or what, but there seems to be a pattern when there's something on the agenda that's maybe get a little pushback. For example, Village 5 or this water thing, the Sigma. It doesn't seem to get noticed right or agendized right. There's always seems to be something. And it's happened too many times that to me, it's not a mistake. It's done on purpose. I don't know if somebody's directing Ms. Scanlon to not do it more openly or not, but kind of takes away from the whole transparency thing. I don't see my clock anywhere, so I don't know how much time I got.
30 seconds.
I'll wrap it up and just. Okay, so bottom line is, I was hoping with all this management that's gone, that's no longer here in this city, that this kind of stuff would get cleaned up. And it still seems to be going on. And it's a shame. It doesn't have to be that way. I don't know why this city can't be honest and upfront and open with stuff. Just because you say you are doesn't mean you are. I'm hoping the new city manager either watches this now or in the future, so he understands that what he's coming into is the same thing all the previous city managers came into, and none of them have been able to change it, including Mr. Scott. I had higher hopes for him. But anyway, appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schreiber. Okay, Mr. Chapman?
Thank you, Mayor Andriotta, council members, city staff. Unfortunately, starting out the new year, it's also bringing things from the previous year and previous years. Something simple, or at least it should be. I'd like to thank the interim city manager, also the ADA coordinator, for literally addressing the issue on the sidewalk on F Street, a half a block from here. They've made that situation there very, very easy for the non-disabled public to get through that sidewalk. Unfortunately, they still haven't marked off the entire sidewalk and blocked it off. What you have there basically is a sign that says sidewalk closed. But the barriers that go around it allow anybody with 2 legs that move, you walk right past it. This thing's been brought up for, what the heck, 8 months now. Wow, things really change. Well, I just want you to know that it doesn't stop there. I'm not going away anywhere soon. And there is a phrase that says you can't You can get a horse to a water trough, but you can't make it drink. In my world, you can, and you do it legally, and that's how it works. So for what it's worth, I got that information from a book entitled Dummies for Public Office. I would hope you all read it. Thank you.
Mr. Chapman, really quickly, I missed when you first started talking, what sidewalk are you referring to that's all blocked off?
It's half a block here on F Street, going up to Fifth. You can't miss it. And Mayor, I appreciate you bringing that up, and you and all the other four up here can walk right past that deal with no problem at all. I've got a wheelchair to put you in. I'll test your metal. It won't work. Thank you.
Mr. Scott, is that a project that's gonna be completed pretty soon, or, I know we got a lot of sidewalk projects going on in the city right now.
Yeah, I'd have to report back on exactly the timing on that. I know that there's a lot of attention to it. And the issue Mr. Chapman's talking about is it's really the difference between posting the sign sidewalk closed and actually making the sidewalk be closed, which has all sorts of implications. So, my direction has been, let's hurry up and try to figure out what to do with the trouble. There's even easement problems on that street. So it's not a simple just go in and pave it and get it done kind of issue, but we're all very aware of it and we appreciate his comments about it.
Thank you. And I just want to refer to Mr. Schreiber's comments about the posting. I didn't see how tonight's agenda was posted. And if it was posted wrongly or incomplete, then we apologize. And we're working hard to correct that. But I do want to defend Ms. Scanlon. I know you weren't criticizing her, but Ms. Scanlon, our city clerk, is probably one of the highest valued employees that we have, and she does an excellent job every single day. So whatever the misposting was, I'm sure it wasn't her responsibility or something she did on purpose or not on purpose. And so I just wanted to make that comment.
I think I'd actually like to dive down on that a little bit, because to the best of my knowledge, it was not posted differently than we normally would have. So I don't know if Mark, you want to address that, or if we want to get Gwen.
I think Christine has her hand on.
No, it was posted according to state law and according to our ordinance, which requires that it be posted in the Lincoln News Messenger specifically.
So we are not posting that any differently than we have everything else.
Correct. Correct.
So no hiding, no trying to fool the public, posting it exactly as our ordinance requires.
Correct. And this entire Sigma process has been part of a regional effort. And so all of the hearings that have been conducted with the board for Sigma, and then now that are coming down to all of the individual jurisdictions, have all been online for a long time.
I'll just add to that, and thank you for Councilman Turner and Mark and Christine. Thank you. I'll just add to that I hear us say all the time that we post everything to the law, and we do, right? When we are able to build our staff up and we have a better handle on that, it's my goal that we go above and beyond what the law says, and that we make sure that everyone's informed, it's posted everywhere, and it can't be missed. So that would just be a goal that I have for us moving forward. But I wanted to make the comment that there's no disparagement to Ms. Scanlon, because she's a top employee and we value her greatly.
Mayor, excuse me. It's,
Whoa.
We're not doing public comment yet.
Gwen is talking.
Oh, go ahead, Gwen.
yeah, okay. Just now you sounded perfect, but earlier you could barely hear you on the Zoom. So you'll need to move forward.
Yeah,
or
with
move
the
your
addition
mask or-
of the masks for you guys at the council, you have to be on top of your mics. Otherwise, they won't pick you up.
All right, we'll make sure we're.
All I wanted to know is that there is absolutely no conspiracy from City Hall. I don't know what things were like before we got.
Like they almost need to be at your mouth.
Mr. Scott and Ms. Hanson and the council you have right now have actively tried to make the culture at City Hall be transparent, and you have 5 representatives up here right now who are really committed to continuing that process, and I just hope the public realizes that and sees it and takes us upon it.
Okay, thank you, Beth. don't see anybody else in the chambers for public comment. Gwen, do we have anybody on Zoom?
Yes, we do. Lena Lebowski, please go ahead.
And council members, Lena Lebowski here. I have a question for Council Member Bill Lauritsen. I want to know if you are an elected member of the Democratic Central Committee. The reason I want to know is you are my representative on City Council, and you continue to make comments and vote according to your personal political beliefs. I, as a member of your district, want you to vote according to what is best for Lincoln. And if you don't know, this council member body does what is best for Lincoln and does not consider politics. So, Councilmember Lauritsen, can you answer my question? Thank you.
I'm not really, first of all, I'm not really sure what the question was. Yeah, I'm a member, I'm not exactly an elected member of the Central Committee. I was appointed because no one ran. We only had 2 people run for 4 positions, so I was appointed. But I don't feel I'm any different than Betty Yee, who is the state controller, and is also the vice chair of the Democratic Party, the California Democratic Party. So I don't,
And just the city attorney here, for purposes of this question, I would like to remind the public that these are nonpartisan positions that these individuals run for. And so their individual political party preferences are really not relevant to our discussion here tonight.
Thank you for answering our questions.
Thank you. Next, we have Max Moon. Please go ahead.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Hi to the City Council staff, and a quick thanks to Lincoln PD for all they do. My name is Max Moon. I'm the president of Lincoln Skate and Bike Association and can be reached at maxmoon360@gmail.com. I would like to bring up again the need for an area that can be used for skating and biking. I have been in communication with Mayor Andriata, and she has been very helpful and very responsive. And we are 100% on the same team, but I wanted the rest of the city staff to be aware of the reasonable requests and ideas I've had, and our association has had, and formally proposed these 2 ideas again. The first item is the skate and bike area at McBean while a newer, bigger, better, safer multi-year plan takes place. At the last Parks and Rec meeting that was cut short, the sticking point for getting back to space in McBean was safety. Officer Williams was interviewed, and based on a handful of quick questions he was asked, and info from 2019, he therefore deemed it unsafe. I connected with Officer Williams after the meeting and proposed solutions like having a supervisor or manager with volunteers for the area like the pool has a lifeguard. There's also a camera system that's already in place at the veterans area now, and upon further review, he feels that the area would be fine. So I encourage us to revisit it. And since it looks like we have overcame that obstacle, and since the baseball, kids area, play area, pool, horseshoe, shooting range, basketball, and dog park also operate in the same area, there should be a small area for skaters and bikers. So with your permission, during designated times, Lincoln Skate and Bike Association had 6 features that we would like to officially donate to McBean space to be used by the community while we work on a lengthy multi-year plan. The second item is a bicycle pump track made out of dirt located at the community center at Joyner and First. The city applied for the grant last year, which we now know we aren't going to get, and multiple surveys were done requesting what amenities were wanted. The city submitted full community park plans and had a multi-purpose sports field, stage and garden, kids play area with plans for the skate and bike area and pump track included, which was one of the most popular and doable features since it requires only moving dirt with the community volunteers that we already have. The concerns of understaffing, safety, and money can and have and will continue to be addressed since both of these requests are using donated time, donated money by the community that we would like to have access to the areas that we pay taxes for that aren't being utilized. Respectfully, let's not get weighed down by logistics look for reasons to do things instead of reasons not to do things. It's easy to say we want these things, but let's show the community we want them. I propose we form a committee for these two items, and obviously I volunteer to help organize them. Yes, these features will be safe. No, it won't cost money. So let's, again, donate features at McBean with supervision, and let us move some dirt at the community center and so we can ride bikes on it. I'm eager to work with you on this, and please let us know how to begin. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Max, for your comments. Really appreciate it. Ms. Scanlon, do we have any other comments on Zoom?
No, Mayor, no other comments.
Okay, well, we'll close public comment. Thank you, everybody. Item number 8, consent agenda. All matters on the consent agenda are considered routine business and will be enacted in one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a member of the city council or resident requests a specific item be removed from the consent agenda for separate action. Any items removed will be considered after the remainder of the consent agenda. Do any of my colleagues wish to remove an item? I know that Councilman Carla Skint wants 8J. Any others from the council? No. Are there any members of the public who would wish to request an item be removed by the council? Any? Mr. Chapman, go ahead. 8I. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so 8I and 8J. All right. Do I have a motion for the remainder of the consent agenda?
I'll second.
Okay, first and second, can we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Councilmember Silhai,
Yes.
Councilmember Lauritsen,
Yes.
Councilmember Joyner,
Yes.
Councilmember Carlskin,
Yes.
and Mayor Silhai.
Mayor Andriotta says yes.
I'm sorry, Mayor Andriotta.
That's okay. Old habits are hard to break. Okay, so we'll begin with 8I just because it's the first in order. This consent agenda is adopt resolution 2022-07, authorizing the city manager or designee to submit an application to the California Office of Traffic Safety for the 2022 Police Traffic Services Grant Program to fund one police traffic motorcycle and obtain all equipment necessary to conduct safe and effective traffic enforcement with the goal of reducing and combating traffic-related incidents, injuries, and deaths through enforcement and education. Before we do a report, Mr. Chapman, what was your question on that?
4 questions, kind of combine the whole item. Thank you, Mayor, council members. Byron Chapman. First question has to do, has the Lincoln PD ever had a motorcycle officer? If they have, when, how long ago, and we no longer have, not that I know of, so where did that go? Second question, does the Lincoln PD have an officer trained for this type of work? If yes, is it one or more? 3, motorcycle, the position itself, will it be filled with an officer currently on the force? If not, what needs to happen in order to move this along? Because I do believe it's a wonderful idea. 4, for the following years after the grant, how will the position itself be actually funded? And it just as a side question to this, I know approximately a year or so ago, there was a grant for 2 on and off-road motorcycles and a drone for surveillance, homeless, a whole bunch of other things. I never really heard what happened to that or whether those motorcycles are being involved. And it wasn't really clear as to whether it was going to be code enforcement or law enforcement or both. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Chief Alves, would you like to answer those questions?
Question 1, have we had motorcycle officers before? Yes, we have. We had them for probably 3 years in the mid-2000s. We had 2 full-time traffic officers who rode motorcycles and then a full-time traffic sergeant. So that program was in place for a couple years, and then once the housing bubble and the recession happened during layoffs, we had to return those officers back to patrol. And do we have an officer trained? Currently, we do not have an officer certified for police motorcycle use, but we do have officers who are interested in the position, who are qualified for the position, who have motorcycle experience. So it would be sending them to an 80-hour motorcycle officer training course. And we do have the budgeted funds in our training budget to do that. And will it be an officer from the force? Yes, it will. With the tax sharing funds this year in the Fund 101, we were able to hire 4 additional officers. With that, we developed a 1-year plan on what to do with the officers and what specialty assignments we can create. One of the most important specialty assignments was a traffic unit. So that will be a full-time existing police officer who will be applying for the position and then implemented. And how will the position be funded moving forward? This grant is for equipment only. It is not for personnel. So the initial purchase would be for a motorcycle and for the equipment. And typically the lifespan of those, 4 to 5 years, depending on how much use. So there'll just be standard public works maintenance costs to go along with that. That would be included in a fleet's budget moving forward. And then just the side note question on the motorcycle grant, drone grant, that was just a grant we didn't get, so we did not add any off-road motorcycles or drones through those previous grants.
All right, thank you so much for that information. Are there any questions?
I would just like to add, there was also a question involving code enforcement, and I would just like the public to be clear that code enforcement does not enforce the vehicle code on public streets, so nothing along those lines would ever be involving code enforcement.
Right, thank you. Any questions from the council on this item? Oh, were there any questions from the public on this item?
No hands are raised, Mayor.
Okay, seeing none, may I have a motion?
Move approval of the item.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Sorry about that. Councilmember Joyner,
Yes.
Councilmember Silhigh,
Yes.
Councilmember Carlskin,
Yes.
Councilmember Lauritsen,
Yes.
and Mayor Andriotta.
Yes. Thank you. All right. 8J, adopt successor agency resolution 2022-01S, approving the recognized obligation payment scheduled pursuant to Health and Safety Code, section 34177, for the period of July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. Councilmember Carlskin, what was your question on that?
A very simple question. I remember over the years, and it references it in the staff report, that we have been turned down on the interfund loan payment as being valid on the ROPS for several years. And I just wondered, it's included back here, what are we doing different that makes us think it's going to work this time?
Ms. Scanlon, is Sandra Cook available to answer this question?
She is on. Sandra?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. This is an annual reporting, and we have a finance consultant who currently prepares this. I can get back to you on what exactly was done different, but from my understanding, it's the same thing each year. One thing that was done slightly different was if you look at attachment A, there's a bond reserve. And the bond reserve was basically we were asking ahead for money, but we've taken that away and just scaled back to specifically asked for our debt service payments in hopes that they will at least approve those rather than approving funding for future bond reserve.
Your mic is not hot.
Yeah, the question that the council member asked was in reference to the, what do you call it? The
Interfund loan.
The interfund loan.
You'll have to remember those terms.
Yeah, I know the term. Are we aware of why the consultant thinks this year that there might be a different response than we've gotten in the past? Or are we aware of what rationale we got back from DOF and why they rejected it in the past?
No, but I can circle back and see if I can get some more details.
Yeah, we need to do that.
So
I have the same question, and I unfortunately didn't see this until today, but.
I'll add to that. I think our ask was retroactive to prior years as well. So I'd be curious about that. What is it that we think will allow us to be successful in that?
You know, there's all sorts of possible answers to this, and I don't want to waste people's time with it. They do from year to year sometimes change policies on what they approve and what they don't. And sometimes it depends on how much funding we have coming to us in terms of what they approve and what they don't. But I don't know that that applies to this one at all. So why don't we get the right answer and we'll bring it back to you.
Yeah, it wasn't.
So unfortunately, Stephanie Bouchain is our consultant who has been working on this item, and I don't believe she's online this evening. This is scheduled to go to the County Oversight Board on Thursday, but if this body doesn't wish to approve it, we'll just kick it to the next opportunity.
I don't think it hurts us to ask. I mean,
Of course not. No.
They don't say, oh, you asked for something you shouldn't have asked for.
Well, that, I think, was where I was going. We should have asked before, and if we haven't, if it doesn't work this time, please find out why and fix it, you know.
Absolutely.
Anyway. So,
Correct. And Ms. Bouchain is scheduled on Thursday before the County Oversight Board to be a representative and speak to all of these issues.
So then, am I hearing that you guys want to pull this off and not vote on it?
No,
Oh,
I'll
just
move
make clear
approval.
what you're asking. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
I got my question answered.
Yeah, move approval, but ask. Okay.
Make the ask.
Make the ask. Yes. Okay. All right. Any other questions?
I move approval of this.
Hold on real quickly. Are there any other questions from council? Any questions from the public? Okay, go ahead, Dan. Oh,
Okay, I make the motion to approve the item.
I'll second.
hey, thank you. Can I have a roll call, please?
Yes, Councilmember Carlskin,
Yeah.
Councilmember Lauritsen,
Yes.
Councilmember Joyner,
Yes.
Councilmember Stillhigh,
Yes.
and Mayor Andriotta.
Yes. All right, thank you, everybody. Number 9, public hearings. Conduct a public hearing to consider the Northern American Subbasin Groundwater Sustainability Plan and find that the proposed action is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to California Water Code 10728.6 and adopt Resolution 2022-08 approving the North American Subbasin Groundwater Sustainability Plan and authorizing Sacramento Groundwater Authority as plan manager to submit the plan to the California Department of Water Resources and adopt Resolution 2022-09 approving the memorandum of agreement and authorizing the city manager and his or her designee to execute the agreement. And will Ms. Frost be giving the report on this? Okay, thank you.
Yes, I will. Thank you, and good evening, Mayor and City Council members. I am Angela Frost, Environmental Services Manager in Public Works. And as you may recall, the city has been working toward compliance of the state's Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, also known as SGMA, which was enacted in 2015 to provide a means for local control and involvement in the sustainability and management of groundwater. The city has been a part of the West Placer Groundwater Sustainability Agency since 2017 and has contributed to the collective effort to develop the Groundwater Sustainability Plan, also called the GSP, which you'll hear often tonight, for the North American Subbasin. Tonight, we are holding a public hearing to receive public testimony on the following items and for City Council to formally take action to adopt a resolution approving the North American Subbasin Groundwater Sustainability Plan, GSP, exempt the project from CEQA, and adopt a resolution entering into a memorandum of agreement for continued coordination and implementation of the GSP. Brett Story, who recently retired from Placer County and is now working at West Jost, played an instrumental role in establishing the GSA for West Placer and carries a lot of technical knowledge, expertise, and insight to this plan development. Brett will be making the presentation tonight on this item, on the items that are up for consideration and approval. Brett, I'll now turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Angela. Pleasure to be here, honorable council members, City of Lincoln. Gwen, we can go to the next slide. So what this is all about is the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. The California legislature passed a number of bills that constitute this act in 2014. The governor signed it into law in 2015. The Department of Water Resources, or DWR, you'll also hear that mentioned tonight, determined that any high or medium priority basins, which are determined really by population and growth and not by groundwater use, should have to create a GSP that utilizes a combination of stakeholder input and relevant analysis to determine what state each basin is in currently and over a 50-year period. The SGMA legislation provides that each basin should be sustainable within 20 years of the start date, which in our case is January of this year. Next slide, please. We are in the North American subbasin, and that subbasin is an area including parts of 3 counties, Placer, Sacramento, and Sutter, which include 5 groundwater sustainability agencies, or GSAs, that have been designated by DWR to analyze and manage the subbasin. You can see that each GSA has a representative that works towards those goals and endeavors to inform and engage with stakeholders. And the reason I put the names up there was so that you're aware those folks will address and answer any questions that come via email or phone or letter. And we try very seriously to get back to all stakeholders to try to answer their questions. Next slide, please. What has to be done to demonstrate sustainability under SGMA is that over time, each of those 6 indicators, which you see before you, which are the lowering of groundwater levels, reduction of groundwater storage, land subsidence, water quality degradation, depletion of interconnected streams, and seawater intrusion, though you have to define possible undesirable results that could occur. In the NASB's case, only 5 of them are relevant, as seawater intrusion is really not practical, as we know we're pretty far inland. The indicators are required to be in consideration of beneficial uses and users. The criteria must be established to track progress, and a representative monitoring network must be developed. We must consider not only the people that use groundwater, but also the environment, such as streams and habitats, and groundwater dependent ecosystems, or what's referred to as GDEs. The GSP has done this, and I will provide you a summary of all of this. Next slide, please. And this is just to describe the definition of beneficial uses and users, which are depicted and are relevant in our subbasin. Obviously, agriculture is very large, particularly in Placer and Sutter counties. Municipal groundwater use is much larger in Sacramento County than any of Sutter or Placer. There's obviously domestic wells and their users, and then there's surface water. What we need to look at is we try not to deplete the surface water from streams and rivers from groundwater pumping, and we'll show over time how that works. And then, of course, there is the environment, which contains many different types of things, all from trees, birds, reptiles, anything else that might be out there. Next slide, please. Okay, there's the sustainable management criteria as a requirement for SGMA. We need to create something called measurable objectives, or MOs, which are the desired conditions to achieve that sustainability. And then there are minimum thresholds, or what's referred to as MTs, which are levels that, if exceeded, may cause undesirable results. The NASB GSP has determined through analysis and modeling what the relevant MOs and MTs are for all areas in the subbasin. And I might add, those MOs and MTs are variable throughout the basin. In other words, there are different geologic conditions and different saturation points within how groundwater works throughout the basin. So we are allowed and have done so through analysis to determine what the proper MOs and MTs are throughout the basin. Next slide, please. Another thing we're responsible for per SGMA is that the NASB GSP was required to develop a monitoring network throughout the subbasin. It was determined early that the best approach was to have a basin-wide network as well as one for the interconnected surface water network. So you see there are two slightly different networks. There's 41 designated representative monitoring wells for chronic lowering of groundwater levels, potential for subsidence, and surface water depletion. Next slide, please. This one really represents, I wanted to make sure that the council and the public understand how much work was really done and give you a sense of the process and timeline for this work. Since 2015, the agencies weren't the NASB group then, but all of the agencies have been conducting stakeholder outreach, performing analysis and modeling, and drafting language that went into the GSP. At the beginning, we were able to meet directly with all stakeholders often, but as you are aware, when COVID hit, we were forced to meet in other ways. While we did hold several meetings by video, we also made a large effort to reach out by all means of social media. And in the end, we were able to get a significant number of comments and information that did strengthen the GSP. We utilized quite a bit. And you'll note that the staff has provided both the detailed comments and responses to the stakeholders, as well as an overall summary of how that input was used to improve the GSP. While many comments were helpful to the agencies involved for development and implementation of the GSP, not all comments resulted in changes to the GSP. Some comments did not pertain to the responsibilities and obligations under SGMA and its follow-on legislation, or were not supported by the best available information nor the best available science, and therefore were not addressed as per DWR regulations. Next slide, please. Yeah, as you can see, the NASB GSP contains all the required elements by SGMA. Many of these are highly technical. An enormous number of analysis and modeling was required to determine the information within the GSP. Several expert consulting firms such as GEI Consultants, Woodard & Curran, and MBK Engineers were hired to perform as independent entities under the direction of the NASB staff. While some of this chapters also contain depth and documentation of outreach, as well as planned budgets, actions, and projects to ensure that the NASB remains sustainable for the future. If you were able to read the entire GSP, I applaud you, as it contained around 400 pages. Luckily, there was an executive summary that was provided within the GSP. It was really put there to make it more understandable by the public. So we hope that worked. Next slide, please. And then even more depth to the analysis, outreach, and modeling was provided within the 20 appendices, totaling over 1,100 pages. And I'll be honest with you, I did not read all 1,100. I did spend some time helping write and edit them, but it's a lot. It's a lot of detail. It was a lot of work, and I feel very proud of the entire team for what was accomplished for this. Next slide, please. Okay, but we're going to go into the results of the GSP, but before I describe the results, I want to provide a background of what was done to ensure the results would be highly predictive. First of note was the modeling that was performed. The NASB group decided that the state provided model was not accurate enough, and therefore a modeling group was brought in to initially develop more detail and align the accuracy of the model, which was done. And then they provided a more accurate amount of local details of the subbasin prior to running the model. All local development plans from public agencies for growth, water usage, and other factors were built in using not only the approved plans of each agency, but interviews with local agencies about potential future conditions were also detailed and put into the model. These included, partly based on local stakeholder input, particularly in the West Placer area, discussions with both the Placer and Sutter County agricultural directors about changes in crop, i.e. rice to nut trees, etc., and the amount of projected wells and locations by the cities of both Roseville and Lincoln. Your Lincoln engineer, as well as the Roseville, by the way, was quite helpful in providing the plan for potential wells and the spreading out of locations as to not place pressure on any one area in surrounding Lincoln as the growth of Lincoln takes place. Next, the model, and that was all put into the model. Next, the model was run in the most conservative approach in that when a condition was implemented, and you'll see what I mean by conditions in a second, the full effect after 50 years was imposed on the area at the beginning of the run. So normally those conditions would start small and then increase over time. but the desire was to be able to stress the basin as hard as possible to see how sustainable it really is. Okay, now to the results. You can see with the first chart there that the current condition model run showing all forms of inflows and outflows, that there is an excess of groundwater storage within the entire basin. The next chart shows all projected conditions, meaning all of those developments that are coming, that have been approved and projected. And again, we have a small excess of groundwater storage at that point. The final required model run is with the projected conditions plus the climate change conditions, which were provided to us by the state as something as a guide to use. And we are showing a small amount of loss of groundwater. Again, with the conservative nature of the model, we don't believe that we will have a decreased amount of groundwater, but we are already implementing some actions and projects to counteract this possibility. Next slide, please. To look at the results another way, the models also predicted the groundwater level changes. 50 years of a conservative model run, and we, by the way, we started out using the average of 2014-15 conditions as the baseline. We subtracted the projected declines from the baseline to establish the minimum thresholds, and we compared the effects of these future levels on beneficial uses and users. So we always have to factor those things in. The results show that there are certainly some areas within the basin that will have lower levels of groundwater than are desired. The most problematic area is in the Sutter and Sacramento County region, where some projected housing developments are going to begin on groundwater and eventually go to surface water. And so that's why we're seeing the largest drop in those areas. They show decrease by as much as 18 feet. There are actions and projects already started and some designed to help counteract those conditions in that area. In our local area, we see that there are some areas by Roseville and Lincoln that show a potential decrease of 6 or 7 feet after 50 years. Again, we have actions and projects being designed to ensure that does not happen, and we'll discuss those next. And I might add that all of the measurements are taken twice a year, and part of the GSP, if you read into there, is that if we have a couple of monitoring events that show a problem area, then we immediately need to get working on it. Now, the NASB group has already determined that if we see one problem area, we're going to go take a stronger look at it and do some extra measurements just to see and make sure we don't ever get to that point. We don't believe we'll get there, but we certainly are not adverse to that. Next slide. Okay, so here we have currently within the NASB GSP, we have 5 defined management actions as well as 2 defined projects. And I'll go through them briefly just so you're aware of what they are. The Regional Water Authority has something called a regional conjunctive use expansion. And what that means essentially is where in Sacramento, there are some areas that have been wholly on groundwater, and they're now utilizing, and that's the meaning of conjunctive use, they're utilizing surface water to take the place of some of that groundwater. And they're now into the expansion phase 1 that will increase that amount. Again, what that'll do is that'll lower the amount of groundwater being used and increase the surface water to help with those areas. So it should bring the levels back up. The second project, there's the Natomas Cross Canal Stability, Berm, and Channel Habitat Enhancement projects. And by the way, that's new from when we first had put out with projects because we reacted again to some environmental issues. And this one is going to help bring some of the habitat enhancements that are really required and the right thing to do in that area. We also have the 5 management actions, which are going to be, some of them are going to create more groundwater. Some of them are going to help with making sure that wells don't go dry. The first one is the complete planning of the Sacramento Regional Water Bank. The city of Lincoln is a member of that, and that's in the process of being defined right now. And that could add quite a bit of groundwater into the entire Sacramento region. The nice thing about where we are in the Western Placer areas, that is one of the best areas for recharging the groundwater basin. So Many of the projects are going to come in our area, and the benefit will be that people in this area will see the water first, and so it should help balance any groundwater lowering that could possibly happen. So we feel very strongly it's going to be kind of the biggest bang for the buck, and that will become a project that once it gets federally recognized and the money starts flowing in for it. We're also exploring improvements with well permitting programs. We're looking at a more proactive coordination with all land use agencies and SGMA agencies to make sure that they understand and recognize you can't just put a bunch of groundwater wells in without effects, and there needs to be mitigation for those. We're also looking to put in a domestic shallow well data collection and communication program to ensure that we protect those small users from having any issues with large wells going in near them. We're going to be working a lot with the well permitting agencies on that. And then there's what's called a groundwater dependent ecosystem assessment program. And that's effectively trying to make sure that what is out there that is dependent on groundwater from the environment still has access to groundwater, and we still keep groundwater in those areas. Next slide, please. So the next one is about the supplemental projects, and we have several, and what that means is they're just currently in the design phase, but they haven't been implemented yet. Here in Western Placer, we have two very important projects. One being the Sustainable Agricultural Groundwater Recharge Program, which the County of Placer is responsible for. And what that, a short version of what happens is there are developer funds that are being collected, and actually they've already begun to be collected, but over time it'll be several $1 million. And those funds are specifically used to look at recharge in the Western Placer area. So I know that I support Placer County on this, and we're already looking at the first project, trying to get a grant for the project to start, and hopefully we'll be recharged within 3 or 4 years to get better groundwater. There's also several aquifer storage and recovery, or ASR wells, and essentially what happens is you clean water up and you inject it into the ground to help fill the ground. And the city of Roseville has already has a couple of them, and they have a large plan to do more of them. I understand the city of Lincoln is looking at that as one possibility of some of their wells, but that's obviously something for the future. And as these get defined and they become projects, then they would slip into the project mode rather than the supplemental project mode. Next slide, please. Now the next item is to review the memorandum of agreement, which has been developed working with all agency staff and most importantly, all legal counsels. And that was done by us. And the conditions, just so you're understanding, it's a traditional MOA. There's governance, decision-making, and legal. Each member GSA gets one member to the committee. There's one vote per GSA. Ultimately, all those decisions must go back to the public agencies for voting. There's standard clauses, limitations, et cetera. And there are obligations. Each GSA and agency must fund the common activities, projects, and management actions. They must share and disclose information relevant to the GSP implementation. They have to develop and maintain a data management system. They have to participate in all the updates as well as all the public outreach. And of course, they have duties, obviously, to carry out SGMA in their respective GSAs and to work collectively to manage the groundwater and to meet all that sustainability criteria. Next slide is also one of the required items was to develop a budget that's reasonable to implement the GSP. As you can see here, funding is broken out on the right by GSA acreage percentage within the NASB, and then total dollars annually and during the first 5 years is on the left. If you were to focus in on the West Placer at the bottom, you'll see that it requires $76,912 annually. But what you also can understand is that amount is divided by the 5 member agencies of the Western Placer GSA. So your city of Lincoln is essentially agreeing to fund $17,091 annually to help implement this large plan. Next slide, please. And just a summary to support what's gone on. The GSAs, as required by SGMA, were formed in 2017. Those 5 GSAs cover the entire NASB region, and they hired consultants to develop that GSP starting in 19. The public stakeholder input was accepted and utilized in the development of the GSP throughout the entire process. Detailed analysis and modelings were performed to create all the SGMA-related items. The MOA was created to fund and implement the GSP. Public agencies have been holding hearings and to approve the GSP and MOA. And by the way, City of Lincoln, you are the cleanup batter. You are the final agency that hopefully will support this. And then it needs to be submitted to the Department of Water Resources by the end of this month. And immediately we begin implementation. The first annual report is actually due April 1st. We already have consultants working on measuring and monitoring everything. We've created and we will begin monitoring those MOs and MTs, and we'll be starting to implement the projects and management actions immediately. And then our requirement is always to report out to the stakeholders. We will hold at least one annual meeting, but we will receive input continuously, and we will try to continue our outreach with as much relevant information as we possibly can. And next slide. In addition to myself, your staff is also here on the call to answer any questions council may have. And I want to thank you for your time and particularly your support on this important discussion for both the City of Lincoln and the region.
All right. Thank you, Brett and Angela, for that informative report. Do any of my colleagues on the council have any questions or comments? And we'll start with Councilmember Joyner.
No questions, just actually, I guess a thought. 7-ish years ago when we started this process and looked at that January 31st, 2022 date, it seemed like we had a great deal of time to work on this. It has come up so very rapidly, and I have to say that in the beginning, I was quite cautious about this. But I've been tracking this all along. I'm so pleased at the work that was done. I've found nothing in this final version that makes me uncomfortable. So I'll be supporting it tonight.
Thank you. Councilmember Carlos Kent.
I have to reference and agree with Councilman Joyner with everything except initial lack of credibility, because I believe that this was the right.
I didn't say lack of credibility. I said I had discomfort.
Oh, I didn't. And having followed this very closely, spent a lot of time reading the plan. I'm very impressed with the work they've done. Very happy with the numbers and the modeling results. So I guess enough said. I'm very much in the, I think we ought to approve it. So.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Lauritsen, questions or comments?
Yeah, I want to thank Brett and Angela for the nice job they did. I read the entire 77-page document today, and this afternoon it was really comprehensive and interesting. I do serve as on the 2x2 with Placer County Water Authority and the Regional Water Authority, and the thing they keep emphasizing is water, and this kind of this is probably the last part of water. I mean, you know, most water we get is surface water, but the groundwater is also important. I remember when I asked for a tour of some of the city projects, I got a tour of some of the wells that we have. So you know, I am familiar with this, and this American North American subbasin really, you know, kind of brings things all together, and it's just another tool in our toolbox as far as water is concerned. So I want to thank both of them for their nice work, and it's great, and it's nice to know this. All right.
Thank you. Councilmember Still High.
Yeah, I think I'll just echo the comments of Councilmember Joyner and maybe add to them. If you couldn't tell by that lengthy presentation, Sigma compliance is actually very, very technical. It's a lot of work. There's a lot of potential things that could go wrong if we don't do it right. There's state oversight. They could step in. They could mandate the plans be changed. There's fees. There's all sorts of things that could get sticky. And when looking over the plan that we'll be signing on to, I just want to really congratulate the staff for doing a really comprehensive, a really good job covering all your bases and, dotting all your I's, crossing all your T's, and presenting a plan that was not only easy to vote on, but really, I think, keeps local control over our sub-basin and keeps the state out of it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Last comment was a huge one for this, keeping the state out of it.
Oh, it's a thing. So thank you to staff.
Very good. Thank you. Brett, I do have a couple questions, if you don't mind. When you were talking about the new program that you guys are going to try to implement, the Sustainable Agricultural Groundwater Recharge Program, and you said you were going out for grant funding for that. My question is it reliant on grant funding? If we don't get the grant, we don't do the program, or is that just one avenue? How is that going to be funded if you don't get the grant?
Yeah, thanks. That's a great question. No, the funds stand by themselves. What happens is it'll be collected over time. Right now, I think we have like $90,000 that's already been collected. It's as the development goes forward, they pay based on numbers of units and maps, et cetera. And so what the idea is, we'd like to try to get grant money so that we can double or more the money that we have. And so we can get as many projects as we possibly can. We actually did a report a couple of years back, and we identified, 10 or 13 projects that we know we could implement and would be valuable to the area. Well, each of those projects could be anywhere from $500,000 to $3 million. We expect to get $10 to $15 million out of the program itself. So we're looking we'd like to implement as many projects as practical. So we're just trying to get more money. And right now the state seems to be in this position where they want to give money to people. And so we'd like to utilize those dollars along with the SAG-ARC program dollars. If we don't get grants, we just won't be able to implement as many projects, but certainly there will be projects implemented.
All right, thank you for that. And then my other question was, I appreciate all the outreach that you did. I know it was required, but I appreciate all that. I'm just curious because the agricultural community is of an importance to me. When you did your outreach and you got input, I know you had said that, and we read all the comments, that some comments or questions weren't really applicable to what you're doing, and some were, and you used some. I'm just really curious, what were some of the input or concerns or questions that you got from the agricultural community when you guys did your outreach?
Sure, and we actually did several of them and met with them, and you're right that it's a community that cares very deeply about what they're doing, and I think whether they believe so or not, but I think everybody is in favor of as much agriculture as can possibly be. They had a number of issues. Obviously, keeping the amount of groundwater that's there is one that we focused on because that's what Sigma is relevant for. And so that's one of the reasons why the SAG-ARC program was designed, was in understanding we need to provide as much groundwater as possible for the future of agriculture. The other questions, several of them had to do really with water rights, surface water rights, and the cost of surface water, which the Sigma Act doesn't have anything to do with. And I know they believe there's a relationship there, and there is between surface water and groundwater, but we had responsibility and obligations for the legislation, which that's the line we stopped at. And so we tried to explain to them that, and it's as a farmer, they got 1,000 things to worry about, and we were just focusing on the groundwater pieces. But I think it was it's probably a frustration with everything that's going on in the state and the world with agriculture, that they were a bit frustrated. But I think I know, because I spent a lot of time, we did everything we could to support the elements from the groundwater side as we could. And as I mentioned in my presentation, we actually went back to your city engineer and asked him and his staff how they plan to put these wells in, because that was a concern of the agricultural folks, is how many wells and how much groundwater use the city of Lincoln would be doing. And I believe he did a wonderful job of not only thinking through it, but designing to make sure that the wells were spread out so that it wouldn't have the same effect everywhere. It would draw from different parts of the basin. And even though the basin's connected, it's not always as connected as you think, based on the soil that's down there and of course the rock that's down there. And so I believe we did a good job of addressing those issues. I'm sure there's still some that believe we may not have, but I stand behind. I thought it was one of the best outreach programs. And we actually were commented, we had comments from a lot of folks how much outreach we did. They were surprised other basins didn't do as much. And so I think we did a good job of that.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. All right, any other comments or questions from the council before I open the public hearing? No? All right, so I have no gavel, so I'm using my knuckles. Open the public hearing. Do we have any comments, Ms. Scanlon, on Zoom? We'll start with Zoom first.
No comments on Zoom, Mayor.
Okay, in the chamber. All right, Mr. Schreiber, go ahead.
Albert Schreiber, to kind of touch on earlier topic about this being agendized. To the best of my knowledge, Mr. Joyner, I did not say it was illegally noticed. I just said it was shady. And if you have a website with e-bulletins that has a specific part for public notices and items come and go on that, you would think all the public notices would be on there. Moving on, but on that same topic, generally I get an email when there's any type of Sigma meeting going on. I did not get one of those either from Sigma. That is not a city issue, it's a Sigma issue. Still seems shady. So I got to agree with Mr. Story about my frustrations, because I feel like a lot of the input that we've had has been ignored, shut down. For example, last time Sigma did a presentation for the city, Mr. Bermudez would not let anyone answer my 3 simple questions. So more frustration. And so when they say a lot of public outreach and stakeholders, I don't feel like my voice has been heard. What Mr. Story also talked about was the modeling. And I'm not sure how you do modeling when neither the city nor Sigma has ever asked me how much I pump, or my neighbors for that matter, or how much I expect to pump, if I expect to put in more wells. You noticed he said they talked to ag commissioners and the other cities, but why not the farmers? Why didn't they ask the farmers how much they're going to be pulling out in the future? Because the price of surface water continues to go up, and which, at some point it makes more sense monetary to go to groundwater. So I'm not sure how you model something when you don't have the inputs or the outputs or for the future. So also to my frustration is it's clear in the city's own documents that in 2011 or 2011, sorry, my bad, the city overpumped, and they know exactly how much. It's in the city documents how much you overpumped and how much you were pumping at that point. And then if you
Mr. Schreiber, can you finish your last couple of statements. I think that was your time. I could barely hear it and your clock wasn't.
Well, I'm watching the clock and it's not ticking.
I know
so-
it's not. So I think I'm.
All right, I'll wrap it up. So basically, the city's overdrafted the aquifer in the past. It's in their own documents, but also in your own documents is where you want to put in all these wells and draw more out than what you did when you overdrafted. And so it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure it out that you're going to overdraft the whole aquifer. And to add on to that, when it's drought, you're gonna pump even more exponentially. So once again, killing the aquifer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schreiber. Any other public comment, Mr. Chapman?
Thank you, Mayor, council members. Byron Chapman. Kind of piggyback a little bit on the last speaker, Mr. Schreiber. It's a great presentation. I went through the documents as well. It was very well defined. One of the biggest issues, and maybe it's not so much the global perspective, but more of a individual that lives in the city as well as the county. Last 10, 12 years, the Lincoln, for example, housing is booming. There isn't a place you can't turn to see some sort of housing project go on, as well as those that are on the books to be completed. I read in here and I've seen where, as with the grant and the others, to have more dollars to create more projects in order to make this work. But at some point, if you have too many homes or basically too many people, and you get to that point where it starts to affect the aquifers, one of my comments in question is, in what incentives are there in order to maintain and stay at a level that's sustainable? And also, you know, what are the deterrents when that does happen? When you find somebody that has a 2-acre, 5-acre parcel, and next thing you know, they've got a well in their back 40. I'm just saying it doesn't take too many of that in order to figure that out. This council, not all of the members, 5-7 years ago, when we were dealing with the drought then, which has now been related to this one, all council members on board at that time all said, when the issue came up about, well, we've got more houses going in, more people coming in. If the drought continues, we need to stop this, put a hold on it, control the water. And the comment from every council member at that meeting, and it's on tape, I looked it up, and all said, if we continued with what we were doing in water use for Lincoln, the aquifers that we have underneath and support Lincoln, that we wouldn't have to ration, do anything different, continue to add the housing that's projected, and not have to even worry about it for 5 years. I don't know how that works with a plan like this. If we have that much water, at what point does it go somewhere else? And then we are not in the position, or if you don't have the water, it doesn't carry how much money you put into a project. I understand how this works and what its intent is, but I want to make sure that at what point do the sounding bells go off? Do you ask the people to move and leave? That's not realistic. So I think there has to be some other checks and balances here as we move along. I know the program's reviewed every 5 years, but there has to be something in there for in the entire process to come together to alert everyone, not just 2 or 3. And that's my biggest concern. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chapman. Any other public comments? There's nobody else in the room. Nobody else raise your hand on Zoom,
No.
Gwen?
No, Mayor.
Okay, then I will close the public hearing. Mr. Story, could I impose on you to respond to some of Mr. Schreiber's comments about asking the farmers how much they pump and the city over pumping in 2011? Could you just talk about some of those comments if you remember what he said?
Sure.
Thank you.
You know, first of all, you know, at the very beginning, we did ask farmers if they would allow us, ranchers, farmers, whoever had a well. We actually looked for volunteers to monitor, because we wanted that to be a part of the monitoring network. We didn't get anyone who wanted that done. And again, I can understand that. No one wants to have a sort of the state or anybody else looking over how much water they use. What we did use was the groundwater use over time that we've seen in each of the areas of the basin. So that was in the modeling. Mr. Schreiber talked about, you know, if he puts more wells in, that's certain. He's absolutely right. That's certainly going to impose conditions on that groundwater. What we did in actuality, we looked at his specific area because he and many of the ranchers were looking at that decision when the price of surface water rising. And so we actually put some of that in the modeling that just like we did with the agricultural crops, we based a best estimate on how many crops would turn over to nut trees and how much added water that would stress the groundwater. We did the same thing in certain regions like where Mr. Schreiber lives that said, okay, more groundwater is going to be pulled out. And that was put into the model. And so the modeling, and it sort of goes to Mr. Chapman's question too, the development that the city of Lincoln, city of Roseville, city of Rockland, Placer County, all of those developments that you all have planned out all went into the modeling, and the amount of groundwater, Lincoln uses more groundwater percentage than any of the other cities. And so that percentage based on your plans was all put into the modeling. And again, that model was then run with those immediate conditions rather than the gradual use. And we still don't see much stress on the area. And again, we're required to look at actual information, actual science, how the ground works in that area, how those streams work. All of that was built in by experts into the modeling. I can understand a rancher saying, I don't believe that. I can perfectly understand that because he or she has to deal with, if someone put another pump in right next to them, that would affect their well. Certainly that would happen. But on the overall, that was all put into the model, and the amount of groundwater from an individual ag user is going to be less than one of those developments. And so the modelers tried to guesstimate, and certainly it's all a guess, right, for the future, but it's all based on the last 20 to 30 years of how groundwater has been used in this region. So that was all put into the model. I think the Western Placer GSA, the whole NASD would be willing and desirable if another well is made available to the monitoring network. So if Mr. Schreiber wants to put his well up to be part of our network, I think that would absolutely help. It would help us determine if there's any conditions that are happening. And I know I'm kind of blending the two because they had similar issues. Mr. Chapman also talked about, what are the consequences and how long do we wait? Well, through the GSP, if we have two conditions, so we measure twice a year. If we have a couple of conditions that keep happening and it's a negative, we're immediately going to look into it. And that's, again, the SAGART program. We're going to try to place our projects where we're seeing any potential groundwater loss. And so it's really a totally connected thing. And if we have agricultural farmers and ranchers that want to participate further and provide that information, I would say without a doubt that would be very welcome, and it would be, and they'd have access to that data, and it would really help. It would help make this even more precise.
Okay, thank you. I really appreciate all that. Thank you so much. All right. Any other questions or comments from the council? Dan?
On the model. Models are dynamic. And as you gather more accurate input data, you modify the model. The model that they're running now has significantly more accurate data simply because as part of the program, they've put testing wells in to see what the actual usage and retention is in the ground, in the basin. And they will do more. That's part of the overall plan. Our problem or opportunity here in Lincoln is to remember that our primary source of domestic water is surface water and not well water. We overdrafted in 2011, because there was a hiccup, more than a hiccup, in our conveyance system. And we were able to do that. We did overdraft. It had nothing to do with drought. Normal, which California, we've had 2 droughts since then. And if we're in the middle of a drought now, that the sustainability has recovered to, I think it's within 7 feet, if I remember the number, of its maximum since 2011 without doing any injection. And I've been talking to staff about some opportunities for us to do some injection of water, which will, use the surface water that we're losing because of flows and inject. Anyway, that's why I'm up and positive on it. I believe in the model. I've looked at the parametrics on the model. They've handled as many what ifs as I could come up with, and as many anomalies that the Lincoln area has compared to other areas. Everything that I can think of, and I've looked for it, and it's handled in the model. Because they couldn't get well owners to give them actual data, there are estimates. But if you get enough measurements wells down, then they're not estimates. You can actually measure how much is being drafted. So anyway, I think it's a great program. It's the kind of thing I would like to have been involved in 30 years ago.
Thank you. All right. Anybody else?
Just echoing, I'd love to see us do some groundwater recharge project here in Lincoln. I think that it not only would be helpful in the model and in our future sustainability needs, but it's exactly the type of thing the state's going to be looking to local governments and agencies to be doing. And for us to get ahead of the curve on that, I think would be great.
Bill?
I just want to make the point that this resolution doesn't say we're going to use any more or less groundwater. It just says we're going to keep track of what we're doing. And that's really important. And groundwater is an important part of our resources.
Thank you. All right. If there's no more questions or comments, may I have a motion, please? Do we have to go back and read them all individually?
We do.
Yeah. Okay. All right. All right. So who would like to give a motion for 9A1 or 9A2, excuse me?
I'll do that.
Oh, no, we don't need to do that. That's just 3.
Yeah, 3. Adopt resolution.
I would just suggest we
Just
make
read all of it?
It would be
Read all of
important to
it?
make the CEQA finding.
Okay.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
so-
Bill. Read all of it.
So if there's a motion to find that the proposed action is exempt from the CEQA pursuant to California Water Code 10728.6.
Okay. Thank you. So go ahead and read that.
And adopt resolution 20.
Well, is there a motion?
Oh,
You
I'm
have to
sorry.
make the motion.
Okay, I'm sorry.
You can just say so moved because she read
So
it.
moved.
So
I read
moved.
it.
I'm happy to second it.
Okay. Roll call,
And then
please.
yeah.
Yes, thank you. Councilmember Lauritsen,
Yes.
Councilmember Silhai,
Yes.
Councilmember Joyner,
Yes.
Councilmember Carlson,
Yes.
and Mayor Andriotta.
Yes.
You're good.
Adopt resolution 2022-08, approving the North American Subbasin Groundwater Sustainability Plan and authorizing Sacramento Groundwater Authority as plan manager to submit the plan to the California Department of Water Resources.
Second.
Thank
Roll call,
you.
please.
Councilmember Lauritsen,
Yes.
Councilmember Stillhigh,
Yes.
Councilmember Joyner,
Yes.
Councilmember Carlskin,
Yep.
and Mayor Andriana.
Yes. Okay. You want to continue on?
Good, I'll do it, yeah. Adopt Resolution 2022-09, approving a memorandum of agreement and authorizing the city manager or his/her designee to execute the agreement.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Thank you. Councilmember Lauritsen,
Yes.
Councilmember Stillhigh,
Yes.
Councilmember Joyner,
Yes.
Councilmember Carlskin,
Yes.
and Mayor Stillhigh.
Mayor Andriotta says yes.
I'm sorry.
I know. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Scanlon. Appreciate that. All right. Item number 10, general business. 10A, discussion of schedule for release and review of the annual consolidated financial report. And Mr. Scott will give that report.
Thank you. This is not a big deal issue, but I think it's an important one for the city council to discuss.
I'm sorry, Mark, we can't hear you.
You got to get close to the microphone. Yeah.
There we go. Now I'm feeling like I'm going to be yelling. All right. This item asks for the city council's direction related to the release and review of the annual consolidated financial report, or the ACFR, previously known as the CAFR. This document has been finished, it's printed, and it's ready for release. The question comes up how a city council should receive a document like this. And let me tell you why I think I'm being a technocrat here, but why I think it's an important distinction. This document, the ACFR, is an independent audit of the city's financial records. All cities, all governments are required to do this. It's a financial audit. It's not a management audit, it's a financial audit. And it's done as an independent report that the city council owns, in the sense that the city council hires the consultant, and it is done for the city council. It's not like a regular staff report where the city manager approves a document to come to the city council for approval. It's not like an annual budget where we present a draft budget and the city council then makes its changes and adopts the final. This is an independent audit that goes to the city council for receipt. And in the past, apparently what we have done is we have scheduled it first with the FIOC, Financial, what?
Investment Oversight Committee.
I would never have gotten there. Financial Investment Oversight Committee. It's a great group. We are blessed in this town to have some really talented people on the FIOC. I have confidence in the group. But we've had it scheduled first for presentation to them, and then it comes to the city council for presentation. We have it scheduled for the council presentation on January 25th. The purist in me thinks that an independent report of this sort should go to the city council first for presentation, and then be referred by the council to the FIOC for their review. A couple reasons I say that. First of all, they're not going to review the work of the auditor in whether or not they properly performed their audit duty. They're going to look at what information is in that document that we can maybe glean some useful information from to help the city going forward. I think it's a perfectly appropriate thing to do. In fact, you've heard me since I've been here say cities don't do enough with their CAFR. So I think it's an appropriate thing to do. But I do think that the report from the auditor first ought to go to the city council, because it's the city council's document. If you can, and I'm proud of this audit. I think you're going to find that we have a good audit, and I'm not concerned about that. But if you can imagine a city council that is receiving an audit that's not a good audit, if it first went to another committee you would all be reading in the newspaper about what was wrong with your financials before you ever get your report. And if there's anything I've learned about city councils, it's that you don't like to get your information through the newspaper. The first time, newspapers are fine, but the first time you don't want to hear. So I just think it's a subtlety. It's not a big deal. You can do it either way you want. I'm comfortable either way. But the FIOC is planning a meeting on the 19th. This is one of several things on their agenda. I would suggest do the council presentation the 25th. We can schedule the auditor to do the Zoom presentation, the FIOC at their next meeting. I would think that's the appropriate way of dealing with an annual report.
All right, thank you for that. All right, questions, comments? Mayor Pro Tem Joyner. Oh, go ahead, Dan, if you're first. I was just going to go in order, but go ahead.
I think it's the way it is now because the FIOC is the grandson of the Finance Committee, which was a committee of the council. So it was like a Finance and Audit Committee. I'm on that on Pioneer. We're looking at the audit before the rest of the council, but we're all board,
Right.
but we're all board members. So
Right. That's common.
that's kind of how it happened. And since it's not a committee made up of board members, council members, maybe we ought to change it and it should come to us first.
Yeah, I would agree with that. As I read through this, my mindset was, if the FIOC wants to review it first, I have no issue with that. But I think I'm more in alignment with the purist in you, Mark. I think that is the appropriate way to move forward with this. It's in no way trying to take anything away from them. You're right. We don't want to hear about anything in the newspaper, but we also, I would think if we do it in that order, I'm going to expect a sign off from them as it comes to us, or the opposite. Here are the issues that we find within that as it's presented to the council. And I don't know that that's the way we want to go forward. So I tend to support your purist view on this and would support going ahead and having it submitted to the council first and then to the FIOC.
Councilmember Lauritsen.
I concur with that. It should come to us first.
Yeah, I wasn't aware that it was going to be going to them first. I would prefer that we see it first, but I would like them to see it, and I would like them to see it for the exact purposes you said that they should be looking at it, which is what lessons learned moving forward. And then I would like to maybe schedule them to present that to us so that we can hear that feedback.
Okay, I would agree with that.
I was for it until he used the word purist.
Purist, yeah.
I have a problem with that.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I'm a bureaucrat, so,
Yeah.
Well, and again, absolutely no criticism of the FIOC.
Oh, no. Yeah.
I'm excited to get their feedback on things
But
like
I think you're right. I think that should be the natural progression. It's our report. It's our document. We should hear it first. And then give it to them, let them go through it, and then give us their input. I'm 100% in agreement with that.
Mayor, may I?
Yes, you may.
Just to build on that, what I like about that order, and I think actually serves our interests better, is if I'm going to get that report first, I'm going to now have some questions about it, which I can feed forward to FIOC before they're reviewing it, and then they can know what my interests are also, because it's probably going to inform what questions I ask them when they're in the hot seat. So I think it actually is a better use of their time.
All right. Do we have any public comment on this topic? Anybody on
Yes, Mayor.
Zoom, Ms. Scanlon?
Yes, we do. We have the chair of FIOC, Richard Pearl. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As chair of the FIOC, I applaud the direction that you're going. We certainly would review the report as it comes to us. Happy to discuss our findings with you, and we look forward to this great discussion.
Great. Thank you, Richard. Anybody else on Zoom, Ms. Scanlon?
No, Mayor.
Okay. Any comment in the chambers? Nope. All right. So you have your direction on that?
Very much.
Great. Thank you. Okay, number 11, council initiated business. Councilmember Joyner, do you have anything? Okay. Councilmember Carl Skent? Nope. Go ahead. No, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm sorry, Dan, we can't hear you.
You got to stay next to the microphone, Dan.
That's good. I can't think what I was going to say. The project, the housing project, that Gathering End is pushing.
Oh, yes.
Okay. I was wondering what the consensus was in having a workshop and having them come and present it so our citizens can hear about it.
I was going to cover that in the information items because I think that the next phase is that they come to councils, not the gathering in per se, but the actual working group and talk about the county plan. So maybe we marry the two together.
Oh, great.
So that we get the full perspective for discussion.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about that?
I like that.
I'm in favor of that 100%.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. All right. You said you had nothing. Councilmember Larson, did you have any?
No.
Council state business? No. Okay. I do have one thing for business. I've been thinking about our library, and I know that Catherine there's some limited things going on, but that's the one thing that's still checked off as, open to the public, is still pretty much closed. And so I emailed her and I said, hey, what are your thoughts on this? Like, when do you think? So given the fact that I know we're right in the middle of this Omicron thing, like highly contagious, like, students are dropping like flies. So I'm not talking about like right this moment, but I'm thinking in a couple weeks, next month or whatever. I asked her about, what do you think about, are we getting to the place where we can open back up fully? Mark was on the email. We had a really great conversation. And so I just wanted to just throw that out there that maybe we should start talking about making plans to get our library back fully open for the public programs once we get past this COVID stage right here. So just wanted to throw that out there and start having the conversation. Why do you look so puzzled?
I suppose the puzzled look is that my stepson has been using the library every day for the last month, and this is the first I've heard that there's some limitation.
Full programming has never
So it's the programming, it's not the library.
The library is open, but the programming has never.
Right, so it's bringing back in the programming, and hopefully he would not be going to Mother Goose on the Loose. He's 47 years old.
So sorry if
That
I
would not
wasn't
be
clear.
good.
Full programming. Yes, I'd like to, because I've had lots of people, when are we gonna get back to full programming? And I think that we're almost there. I think we can get there soon. Of course, again, like not right.
Why don't we agendize this and bring Catherine in maybe for like a late February agenda? Because my guess is once we get to March and spring, we'll be past the spike and able to have those discussions. Is everyone okay with that timing?
Yes. Okay. All right. Information items. Paul?
Turned it off, not on. I do. I wanted to give an update. I know that I provided an information item on the Campus of Hope last time, and also on the county-wide ad hoc group that Councilmember Joyner and I both participate on. We did have the final meeting of phase 1 of that group the day after our last council meeting. And so I just wanted to provide another update. The working group municipality representation on the working group were pretty unanimous in saying there is no consensus. We are not moving forward with these recommendations. We had consensus on some items, which I think will be shown in that final report. I have seen the draft report. I'm happy to share it with you. And one of the main asks of the municipalities on the working group was, before there's any recommendations that are endorsed, that the consultants come and they present to each council so that our public has the opportunity to find out what's been discussed, what's on the table, what may be moving forward, what's not, and that the remainder of the council is able to now have a robust discussion. Councilmember Joyner and I both became increasingly uncomfortable with even providing feedback on some of the minutia level that was being asked of us, because I don't actually know where my council is. I think I do, but we can't have those discussions because of the Brown Act, and we need to have them. So So I just kind of wanted to report out that that was what we advocated for very heavily. We were successful in getting that accommodated. And so that is phase 2. We also asked that that report not be circulated until everyone on the ad hoc committee have a chance to have eyes on it. That seems to not have happened yet if you haven't seen it. So we'll be following up on that to make sure that everyone in the region is able to see it before they start going to councils and presenting the information. Any public that is listening, please attend, tell your friends. Come with questions. This is a big deal. There is a lot of investment. There's a lot of state dollars available for solving or addressing homelessness. And the pie in the sky solutions sound great and the theories sound great, but the reality is that we are all going to have to live with whatever the impacts are. And we want to do that judiciously. We want to do that compassionately, but we also want to do that while maintaining our quality of life. And I have a feeling that our public's going to have a lot of ideas about that quality of life piece, and I want to hear them before I sign off on any potential projects, county level solutions, and I can't do that if you're not listening and you're not engaging. So I'm probably going to continue to beat this drum on every single information item update and until we're done with the process.
All right. Anything else from anybody? Okay. All right. Oh, sorry, Mark, go ahead. Yeah, those dumb masks is hard to hear.
Has the council met Mel? Have we introduced
I was
him
going to
to?
ask.
No, we have
over
not.
here.
Please stand. Mel Pavlinas is our new great planning manager.
Oh,
Welcome.
He,
welcome. Introduce yourself. Tell us about yourself a little bit. I was going to ask who's that skulking in the corner over there.
Basically, Mel, for kind of simple, make it simple and easier to pronounce. I come from El Dorado County. I was there for about almost 16 years. The past 5 years prior to coming here, I was a planning manager over there as well. So familiar with all the processes, familiar with all the same players that are over here are also over there. So it's a benefit, I think, me being over here, but looking forward to working for the city and its residents and working with you and your commissions as well. So appreciate being here tonight and looking forward to meeting and working with you all.
Well, good. Thank you. We are very happy to have you. Welcome to Lincoln. Hope you've already felt at home. Thank you very much. Awesome. It's great to meet you.
Thank you.
Awesome.
tell a story on him. So his first day, a couple of weeks ago, I wasn't going to be here until the afternoon because I commute in on Monday morning. And I was concerned that he was going to walk into a nearly empty department and there wouldn't be anybody there to greet him. So I sent him a text and I said, hey, how about you come in at 1 o'clock tomorrow? Then I can walk you around and introduce you. He said, nope, I'm going to hit the ground running. I'm going to be there at 8 a.m. And he did. And he did great. So we thank him.
Love that. Thank you very much for being here. That's so great.
Thank you.
All right. Well, if that's it, it is 7:51 and we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. And Gwen, thank you for pulling double duty. We really appreciate your hard work.
Now we got to open that.
Thank you, Mayor. So
We now need to convene the special emergency meeting.
Oh yeah, that's not closed session, right? That's
No, that's public.
That's
But I no longer see that agenda posted online. Why? It was there like a half hour ago and it has all disappeared. I had it all queued up and it's no longer posted.
That happens a lot.
That it, no, because I
Let me
always.
see if I can.
Well, it might be that it was scheduled for 6:30 and it said to follow contiguously.
Oh, so it's not agendized the same manner that our regular meeting is?
No, because it's a special meeting, emergency meeting, and we
Okay.
basically said it will begin as soon as we conclude the
Where
regular
can we
meeting.
inform the public and myself?
No
to
earlier than
find
6:30.
that agenda then, if it's no longer here?
So let me see if I can share my screen. Hold on.
That would be great. That way
all right,
everyone
so we
who's
will
watching also will have access to
open
it.
our emergency scheduled meeting.
And Gwen, I think, is going to share her
go ahead,
screen
share your
for us
screen.
so that everyone has access to that. That makes sense, Christina. That's probably what happened, but doesn't help us
I
right now.
thought it was weird
Yeah.
that it said 6:30.
Well, because it had to be scheduled for right after. Right.
6:30.
Yeah. Perfect. Gwen's able to pull it up there.
So Oh, were you able to see it? And I just moved it off.
Sorry. Yeah, all right. So we do need to, Mayor, call this meeting to order, and then there is an item of public comment. So if we want to get.
Okay, so I did call a
a
meeting to order. I did, sorry, 7:52, and we'll see if there's any public comment before we start. Okay, seeing no public comment. All right, who am I turning this over to? You, Christine? Or
I think this is mine.
okay, thank you.
All right.
Appreciate that.
Not a problem.
Is
So
there any way to make that a little larger so we can read it?
Yeah, go up to the top and hit
Zoom
the plus
into it?
sign. Zoom it. Yeah, there you go.
Hold on.
Thank you.
There you go.
There we go. That's
Scroll down to.
There you go.
Maybe one more time. There you
Yeah.
go.
All right, so we did that, so we're on the staff report.
So at the request of a council member and with the endorsement of the mayor, this item has been agendized as an emergency special session. This is staff recommending a discussion by the council regarding making the necessary findings under AB 361 to return public meetings to a virtual setting due to the spread and risks relative to the Omicron variant of COVID-19. So we've had this discussion a couple of times already. It's been before you once in order for council to make findings for council and all of its boards and commissions, and then again separately for the boards and commissions. And council at that time declined to make the findings that were requisite under AB 361 to establish that there were actual factual findings that implicated the public health and safety. And so what you have before you in the staff report and the resolution is information that has been provided to us from the state, from Placer County, and I think also from our own BioBot analytic data that shows that we are on a significant uptick in COVID cases in the Lincoln community. And so with that, I brought that information forward to you for a discussion so that you can determine whether you believe resolution number 2022-11, I think it is. I'm not sure of it. 10, okay. Correct. Essentially finding that there is a public emergency, that there are conditions of extreme peril to the safety of persons and property within the city of Lincoln due to ongoing risk of illness and grave disease, that extreme peril is beyond the control of the city and requires combined forces of other political subdivisions, that these findings necessitate a proclamation of the existence of a local emergency, and that I also placed in the resolution the fact that you have given due diligence on 2 prior occasions to consider this and declined to make those findings, but that since that time, the Omicron variant of COVID-19 has been introduced to the global community, and then recited a number of facts relative to the findings with our BioBot tracking at our wastewater treatment facility, and then also just the county numbers and state numbers that have shown that there has been a significant uptick in COVID-related issues, the ability to secure testing, and those types of things. So I turn it over to you if you have questions. This is really an opportunity for council to determine how you want to move forward with this issue. I'm certainly not here to dictate policy, but this was brought to me by a council member and brought forward at the authorization of the mayor.
All right, thank you. So I think the request was to talk about going remote just through the end of January. So since you brought it, you want to go ahead?
Say I am the one who brought it forward. And just a reminder, these always under AB 361, they are only 30-day authorizations. Every month, should you want to continue it, we would have to rehave this discussion, rehave a proclamation at the end of every month. And I requested that it be brought forward for all of the reasons that Ms. Mollenkopf just said, but also as a reminder, which I forget that not everyone is as familiar with it, since this is something that on my day job I did. there is no hybrid option. There are the facts and findings that we are in the middle of a surge or whatever justifies the emergency that can be authorized under these provisions or not. But if we don't enact it, then our boards and our commissions also cannot enact it. And even though we're in the middle of January, we have several important committees and commissions that are planning to meet this month on items of business that we need to have them meeting over, that are larger, that might draw the public, that have some elderly or some compromised on it. And so I thought that it definitely necessitated the discussion at council level to see where our comfortability level is on having all of that move forward just until the end of this month. And my understanding from the various reports and things that I'm reading is from epidemiologists throughout the nation and the state is that the spike is expected to start to go down towards the end of this month or early February. And so I think that it's definitely warranted for the rest of these couple weeks. And maybe we want it to just agendize the discussion again for our next council meeting so that if we need to continue it, we can. And we can have that discussion then. But yeah, so that is why I requested it, so that we just realize that either we implement it or we don't. But like the other reason that I asked is, I had several interactions over the last week with individuals, both at work or in my personal life, who ended up testing positive for COVID. I tested an hour before council today because of the OSHA requirements. If you are exposed now, you have to isolate for 5 days, and then you have to have a negative test. That sample is collected on the 5th day, provided to the employer, which we are considered employees, or I wouldn't have been able to come tonight. Well, there were several items of business that I wanted to make sure that I voted on, that I wanted to have my input on. There is no process by which I could have said, hey, I'm just going to go virtual because I missed the notice. So I would have had to just miss out. And so I do think that that could happen to any one of us over the next 4 weeks or so, where we have actual items of business coming before us, and we would not have the option of being able to provide our input on it unless we just decide that we're going to meet virtual until the spike passes. So with that, I'll stop talking.
All right. Mayor Pro Tem Joyner, do you have any comments or questions?
I think out of an abundance of caution, I'd be more than willing to go ahead and go virtual. Again, quite frankly, I don't know that we've got the technology quite conquered here either, and it becomes very difficult to even hear.
It's one meeting this month for us.
Yeah, one meeting.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm fine with it, and I think I can be supportive of that. You're right. The numbers are spiking. I don't know about the rest of you. Apparently, Alyssa, you've had a number of people you've come in contact with or work with that have tested positive for the first time during all of this. I am meeting or hearing about people that I know well who are also testing positive within this last week. So it does seem like it's something to be concerned about and to make adjustments accordingly.
I absolutely agree. My daughter's class had to close for the first time. They've been open, for a year, but there's just so many infections. We stopped having coffee at Starbucks.
Oh my God.
For this.
It's the end of the universe.
We went to Zoom.
That might be our fact and finding right
No,
there.
no.
Right there, yes.
The same guys are meeting on Zoom. We're leaving for Hawaii next week. And so we've been testing every couple of days because we can't get on the plane, and that would be horrible. But I've also talked to quite a few business people, and it's the people that are testing positive, that have to quarantine, that can't work, that puts an onus on him or them. So it's serious from a societal and a financial, even if it isn't serious from a medical reason. So I'm for it.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to go along with whatever the majority decides here. I mean, I'm fine with this. This is pretty open. We're separated and we're all wearing masks. But if it's just one meeting, go back to Zoom. That's not really a problem. And I've had pretty much a very quiet life since the parade. Yeah, I've avoided meetings. The only thing is I went to the Rotary meeting on Thursday, but that was about it. That was not, well, it was only like 20 people. It was usually about 50, so.
Yeah.
I just think that we'll find, sorry, natural, I think we'll find without it that we might have a drop in some of our committees and commissions that are, they're deliberating on some very consequential items and people are not going to be comfortable perhaps coming, or they might test sick and not be able to go or have, had contact and not be able to participate. I think that it will impact business.
So I'm in agreement to go remote for the 25th, and then on that agenda, let's agendize the discussion. So we'll see what the stats are then, whether we want to do one more or if we're good to come back in February.
Will we have another wastewater sample between now and then? We should, right? So we should be able to see if it's up or starting to trend down, which I find very informative. Correct.
Okay.
Of the actual,
Right.
yes.
The sampling that occurs, it's taken over a period of time, but it is about 2 weeks before you actually get the report. So yeah. So when you get the report, you're looking backwards at the data as opposed to, it's not immediately in time.
But what that does also is that normally
It will tell you a trend.
But also it catches before people know they're sick. And so by the time that we actually have the report, we should also be able to mirror it with what our hospitalization rates are and our county reporting rates are and have like an actual picture of
actual testing data.
what's gone down. And so I actually like that.
Okay. All right. So you have your
So I
direction?
think, well, we need a motion on the resolution, but with that, I understand I have the direction to come back at the February, the second meeting of January for further direction.
I have one question, not having the staff report right in front of me. I know that we deliberated it a few times, but I also believe that we implemented it for October. Didn't we meet virtually still in October? Because it expired, the state's order expired at the end of September. Did we meet virtually the month of October and implement it for 1 month, or did we choose not to? I can't remember.
We chose not to.
We did?
Chose not to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just wanted to
We did
double
not
check.
adopt any AB 361
Okay.
findings
we
on
chose not
either
to.
of the
So we
previous
came
two
back in
hearings.
October instead of November. I couldn't remember.
So can we take an action on this? It only says discussion.
Adopt resolution.
So there is discussion
agenda,
regarding
the
adoption of
agenda.
a resolution.
Mr. Scott?
I don't have that one.
Housekeeping issue, we've got an EDC meeting scheduled at 9 a.m.
We need to cancel that.
And I think the best thing to do would just be to cancel it rather than trying to.
Cancel it and then
And have them reschedule it for a
reschedule it on
virtual
Zoom.
notice for next week or whatever their schedules allow.
Okay with that? Cancel it. Okay. So will you
Yeah,
take
get
care
to
of
them
that?
as quickly as possible. They have a couple of speakers
I'm
coming,
going to try to reach
Who
John.
are the speakers on it?
hoteliers.
Oh, that's right. I saw the agenda. That's right. Okay. Yeah, that's a bummer, but we're not going to be able to repost it in
No.
time. So, okay. All right. So can we have a motion on the resolution?
I move we adopt resolution 2022-10.
A second.
Roll call, please.
Thank you. Yes. Councilmember Carlskent,
Yes.
Councilmember Silhai,
Yes.
Councilmember Joyner,
Yes.
Councilmember Lauritsen,
Yes.
and Mayor Andriana.
Yes.
You got it.
Yeah. I think she was like 3 for 5. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Hey, I don't blame her. It's hard. Old habits are hard. All right. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Thank you, everybody. We are adjourned for the second time. Thank you.